Looking for a Halloween treat? How about a recap of the top stories in Fredericksburg area high school football on this week's Varsity 360 right now. Hi there, folks, and welcome to Varsity 360's Gridiron Report. Mark Coleman here from the Virginia Varsity Sports Network. Happy you found us at flsvarsity.com. Happy as always to be joined by a couple of my very favorite sports writers, both from the Freelance Star sports team. We have, back from a little hiatus here, Mr. Taft Coghill. Taft, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too, Mark.
It's been a while. Glad to have you back. And we also have Mr. Nathan Warters. Nathan, it's always good to see you too.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah. Glad you came back after last week. It was a lot of fun, right?
I'm glad you're paying me for this.
Well, why don't we jump right into it? We had some exciting games around the Fredericksburg area this past week, and it started with a big one out a little west from here. Liberty meeting number 4 in the power poll, Eastern View. And this was a high-scoring game and an awfully close game here, Taft. You were at the game, right?
Yeah, it was. It was a very entertaining game, to say the least. And for Eastern View coach Greg Hatfield, he was, even in a loss, he was pretty thrilled to see the way his team competed. He said the rap on Eastern View has been that they can't hang with powerful teams with, powerful running games and also stout defensive linemen. So he was pretty pleased to see that his offense was clicking.
Apparently that's not the case. They did not seem to have too much trouble. A very talented team, but they were able to hold their own there.
Yeah, they more than held their own. They didn't punt the entire game. Kendrick QB rushed for 226 yards and 3 touchdowns. He pretty much showed that he is the real deal. And without 3 critical interceptions by quarterback Josh Stallings, they could have made even more of a game of it.
Stallings did have a pretty good night, 24 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown rushing, also 13 of 23 for 163 yards. He did have 1 touchdown passing.
Yeah. The key with Stallings, I think, right now is he adds a different dimension to them with some of the read option stuff. With when teams can't key on QB as much because he's able to run the ball. He, those 23 carries were pretty huge.
So Eastern View falls from the ranks of the unbeaten. They fall to 7-1 on the year. They are currently 7th in the 4A North. Actually haven't clinched a playoff berth yet, but it seems pretty likely that they're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think win or lose against Culpeper, they'll do it. And also, realistically, they should beat Culpeper on Friday. So I don't think they'll have any problems getting into the playoffs. Might be more of a challenge breaking into that top 4 despite a potentially 9-1 record.
So this QB kid, he's the real deal, huh?
Yeah, QB, he was as advertised. I mean, he was very, very quick, very elusive, and very hard for Liberty to catch up to.
And it looks like they should be able, they being Eastern View, they've proven that they can hang with the top teams in the 4A North. So.
Yeah, that was a statement. I mean, despite the loss, Hatfield had a feeling that they were right there. He was pretty frustrated after the loss not because they didn't play well, but because he thought it was a very winnable game against a very highly regarded Liberty team.
Sure. So Eastern View falls to 7-1 on the season. Another game out west of here a little bit, Louisa, a very emotional game against Orange. This is a good contest without any additional storylines to this one, but there was a storyline with the Louisa coach.
Yeah, Mark Fisher apparently has had a recurrence of cancer and was in Arkansas for a week getting treatment prior to this game, and he made it back in time for the game and coached. Obviously an emotional time for the team, an emotional time for him. Obviously our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. But, he came back, he coached them to a win, a big win over Orange. That's a rivalry game that goes back years and years and years. And on the other end, we had an emotional game for Kiata Malloy, the Orange coach, who was arguing about several calls that they had against them and actually got booted from the game, a rare occurrence to see an ejection. But emotions, running wild in various forms for both teams.
Certainly a lot to be played for in this game. Louisa's running game certainly showed up. 504 yards rushing as a team, led by Trey Cherry, 20 carries, 148 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Joe Whalen also had 12 carries for 121 yards and a touchdown. And then Deion Jackson got into the show there with 2 touchdowns rushing as well. Pretty impressive rushing attack.
Trey Cherry is one of those guys that, you see his name and you see those big numbers almost every week. Yeah. And it seems like the guy's always putting up numbers, but they've added several pieces to that rushing attack. And it seems like they've got a lot of weapons there to get the job done on offense. And their defense has been doing the job as well.
The real deal.
Yeah.
So they go to 6-2 on the season, quite a turnaround from last year. They're actually currently 9th in the 4A North with still 2 games left. They'll be playing Albemarle next week. They're positioning themselves for a potential home playoff game. That's a pretty good turnaround there for the Lions.
Yeah, last year a 3-win team to get up to 6 this year, and with still games to play, a very impressive turnaround. Mark Fisher's got a history in Louisa with winning big games and winning a lot of games, and it's no surprise that he came back this year and has turned them around as quickly as he did.
Well, so one of the area unbeaten teams fell from those ranks. Number 1, Massaponax put their undefeated record on the line against North Stafford this past week, and North Stafford almost pulled it off. This was a tale of 2 halves. Massaponax came out with the 40-34 victory, but North Stafford really made this a game in the second half.
Yeah, Joey Bennon got hurt in the first half, and I think according to our sources, our good sources, Bennon suffered a slight concussion, and he should be good to go when they come back in 2 weeks. But he didn't play in the second half, and that does make a difference. I do give North Stafford credit. I mean, this is a team that is using some unorthodox methods of making adjustments in game. I have a feeling that they made some adjustments. They saw some things on film that they were able to change. They got a lot of production out of their running game, which has kind of been something that has been lacking in recent weeks because of injuries. Malachi Harrison comes back and runs 23 times. Jalen Surratt gets 11 catches. Jimmy Edwards passes for 3 touchdowns. So they had a real good effort there. But Massaponax is just the way their offense is. Even when their quarterback's not in there, they're able to put up numbers. And this was another case of just too many weapons for Massaponax to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Bennon in just 1 half a play, 14 carries, 139 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He also had a touchdown passing. And it sounded like Bo Fields got the bulk of the carries in the second half, 15 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown rushing for Bo Fields. But as you mentioned, Jimmy Edwards throwing the ball around there in the second half, mainly to Jalen Surratt, and North Stafford almost able to pull that one out. Massaponax comes away with the 40-34 victory. They move to 9-0 on the year. They've got a bye next week. They are currently 2nd in the 5A North. They have clinched a playoff spot, no doubt there. They're really in a fight there with Tuscarora, I believe it is, for the top spot in the 5A North. But Ponax, same story here. Nothing new really. This is a very strong team looking to go deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, there'll be one or 2 in that 5A North region, and regardless of where they are, they're a team poised to, like you said, make a really deep run.
Certainly. Meanwhile, North Stafford falls to 4-5. They are currently 9th in the 5A North. Of course, 16 teams make the playoffs there, so they're looking right now if the playoffs were to start tomorrow. They would have a road game. Still a little work to be done, though. North Stafford, after going through a little tough stretch there, this may be a turnaround point in their season.
I think it's hard to tell if they truly are healthy. It appeared from looking at the numbers and looking at the stats that they are getting healthier. With Malachi Harrison back, that's a big addition that they didn't have. At least they didn't have him in full the last 3 or 4 weeks. Right. To get him back, if they do get healthy, even if they're on the road, I fear for the team to have to face them because they do have a ton of talent. Edwards is only a sophomore, and the kid's playing really well. He's put up some big numbers. When you have a passing attack like that, and then you can run the football, they're going to be a very versatile, hard team to defend, and they have history on their side. I mean, they're a playoff-tested team. They have a lot of kids on that team that have played in some really big games.
I'm sure if Eric Ludden had his choice, he wouldn't want to see them in the.
I have a feeling you're right about that. They have some recent history to want to try to not repeat, right? Yeah. So Massaponax with the 40-34 victory over North Stafford. Colonial Forge hit the road to face the Mountain View Wildcats in a Stafford County matchup. Forge enters at 4-3, but ranked 2nd in the latest FLS Power Poll. The Wildcats at 3-4 are looking to duplicate their victory from last year. A couple of very tough defenses on display in this game. Late in the first, Forge quarterback Jamal Brown breaks open a 50-yard run. He gets a nice block downfield by his receiver. and is pushed out of bounds inside the Mountain View 20-yard line. Same drive now, but second quarter, Brown finds Gary Jennings one-on-one to the outside. That's a matchup Jennings is going to win most of the time. 11 yards on the touchdown pass. The Eagles will carry a 7-0 lead into halftime. First possession of second half, Mountain View with good field position. Elijah Burris finds Trey Coghill down the sideline. Nice catch, high-pointing the ball, wrestling it from the defender. Burris on what looks to be a designed quarterback draw. He will punch it in from 6 yards out. That ties the score at 7 in the third quarter. Eagles would respond with a field goal to regain the lead, and the defense would clamp down there. Jacob Bradford on the blitz gets the sack on Burris. That gives good field position to Forge. Justin Brown capitalizes, this time lined up at flanker, 17-7 Eagles, and that would do it. Forge gets the victory, 17-7 the final over Mountain View. Well, Nathan, I know you were at this game. You reported on it. Coach Brown, a little bit frustrated with the execution of his team. A lot of penalties from the Eagles, despite the win.
Yeah, and I think you can kind of explain that away by the fact that they were on a bye the previous week. You know, not being as crisp, not being as smooth as they want to be. They still have the talent. They still won, you know, by a fairly large margin. And give Mountain View credit for being competitive. Two of their first 3 drives, they were inside the 20-yard line. A couple penalties kind of, you know, drew them back, and then they had 4th down plays that weren't converted. You know, they've got the talent to be competitive. That's just a, you know, kind of a tough situation for them. But Forge is locked and loaded. I think they're ready to go. They won 4 in a row. They've held their last 4 opponents to 19 points. I just think that sloppy, you know, you can kind of explain that away by the bye week. I think they're still, you know, in a good position. And
to show just how good a position they are, so they go to 5-3 on the year, but that's good for second in their half of the 6A South. Recalling that in the 6A, they're broken into the conference 1 and 2
right.
and 3 and 4, so 8 in each of those 2 groups will go. Forge at with a 5-3 record, second right now in that grouping. That's a testament to their strength of schedule, but you know, puts them in pretty decent position.
Yeah, and you got to win ball games also, and this streak that they're on right now has put them in a really good spot. And they're sitting there right behind Hilton, which is a familiar foe for everybody involved in that program, and you know. With 2 games to go, they still have. I'm assuming they still have some time to make a move and maybe try to get that top spot.
I believe it's possible. I'd have to look at Justin's magical numbers to see all the maxes and mins and all that stuff. But nonetheless, they're in good shape.
Either way, they're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, Mountain View as well. They're in the top 16 somewhere, right?
Yeah, they're in the playoff hunt as well.
Yeah, so they're currently 11th in the 5A North. 16 teams, of course, as with all the other groupings.
Yeah.
The top 16 teams will move on. Mountain View currently 11th there at 3-5. They've got a big game coming up against Riverbend. They still have some opportunities to improve their positioning there.
And I think that's the thing with a lot of these teams. You know, you look at North Stafford at 4-5. You look at Mountain View at 3-5 right now. Because they play so many great teams on their schedule, they're still in position. Like Mountain View being 11th right now, they're still in a position to make the playoffs and to be in a good spot to make the postseason because, like we were talking about with Colonial Forge, their schedules they're so tough. You know, every week they're playing a team that's going to give them those points to get them up there.
And there'll probably be a team a lot of those higher ranked teams aren't going to want to see come playoff time.
Yeah. So. Riverbend visited Stafford in a 6A South matchup. The Bears looking to keep their playoff hopes alive and end a 4-game losing streak against the Indians. Homecoming for Stafford on their new field. Bears took advantage of the Stafford hospitality early. First play from scrimmage, Jordan DeMarco hits a streaking Chris Pritchett in stride for the 52-yard scoring strike. Later in the first, DeMarco calls 85's number again. This time Pritchett lays out nicely for the grab, 49 yards on this play, down to the Stafford 11-yard line. Running from the Bearcat, Matt Felton finishes off untouched, Riverbend up 14-0. Orlando Jones would continue his hard running from last week. Here he bounces it outside, picks up 18 yards. He'd carry 15 times, 102 yards rushing on the night. Felton has seen what Pritchett can do and decides he wants some of that as well. 39 yards on this pass play. Pritchett with 8 catches, 202 yards receiving, and the touchdown. Felton again, this time from 3 yards out. That's a touchdown even if you're playing touch football. Somewhat forgotten threat in the Bears offense is Zach Sims. Sims here with a nice run for 11 yards inside the 20-yard line. He followed that up on the next play with an even better run. Stops, starts, bounces it outside, and he's gone. Sims with only 3 carries on the game, but 2 of them go for scores. Stafford quarterback Garrett Kropp was under duress most of the night. He's a tough kid, though. Here he bounces off 3 Bear rushers. He turns a sack into an 8-yard gain. The play of the game came in the 3rd quarter. Matt Felton and Zach Sims had everyone in the stadium believing Sims was stuffed in the backfield on this run. The only thing was, Felton still had the ball. Before Stafford could react, Felton was off to the races. 38 yards on this score, his 3rd of the night. Back-to-back 3-touchdown nights for Matt Felton, 8 carries for 72 yards. He was 2 for 3 passing for 45 yards. He also had a pass reception in there as well. Riverbend keeps their playoff hopes alive and gets their 2nd shutout of the season, 42-0 over Stafford. Pretty impressive victory there for the Bears.
I mean, you watch this team a lot. I'm just kind of curious, these offensive changes that they've made in the last 2 weeks, have they really made them that dynamic? It just seems like it's opened up a ton of things for them right now.
Coach, talking to Coach Callahan, who's the offensive coordinator, Matt Felton has been running their scout offense. He is a quarterback in this system. They call it a Bearcat formation, but really from this zone read, spread option type attack, he's the running threat, but he also can pass. DeMarco has not been running the ball very much. Great arm, but not much of a running threat. So it just provides a different, option to that offensive approach. And Coach Callahan said that somewhere week 3 or 4, it clicked for Matt, for Felton, and he started understanding how that offense was running, and so they felt comfortable putting him in. And I think they're going to continue to add additional facets to that approach. So it's not so much that the offense changed, it's just that they've got more kids. It's a new offense, and it's complex. I mean, they're holding up placards on the sides. It's fun to watch, but it's crazy to listen, all the calls and things. I don't understand it. I'll be flat out honest with you. And I don't think some of the kids quite understand it either. They're starting to understand it, though. And when you see them not just understanding but buying into the system, I think that this is a result of what you see.
It looks like something that could take them to another level offensively. When you look at some of those stats up there, pretty eye-popping. You got a quarterback passing for nearly 250 yards, a 200-yard receiver, still having 100-yard rushers. I mean, that's pretty unique to be able to spread the ball around with that many weapons, to the point where a talented guy like Zach Sims is almost an afterthought.
And you're talking about the passing threat now. I mean, that 2 for 3 for 45 that Felton had, that's a telling stat, because you got the Bearcat, but you also have that threat now of him going downfield. And they're not dinking and dunking, they're going downfield with it.
Yeah.
And talking to Coach DeMarco last week for the Player of the Week story, they had almost an embarrassment of riches at the tailback position. Now they're getting all these guys involved. I mean, Zach Sims is lining up in the slot. You got Orlando Jones running. You've got Felton running the Wildcat. It just seems like you said, all their pieces are actually being used now. This could be the sign of them taking a turn towards being a pretty tough team to stop.
It certainly could be, and I know that they hope that it is. And I'll tell you, the interesting thing, of course, I know this team better than most of the other teams in the area. For as good and as exciting as it is to see this offense play, this defense has really turned it around as well. They've got a new defensive coordinator, Coach Henderson, 2nd shutout of the season, and this defense really has stepped it up as well. They had the 1 blowout loss at the hands of Cortland. Cortland ran some formations that they weren't ready to defend. That was earlier in the season. We'll see how it goes, but this team has really shown that it can turn some things around on both sides of the ball. Yeah, they are 9th currently in the 6A South, and their half, that is tantalizingly close to the playoffs. Of course, in that 6A, only the top 8 teams in the Conference 3 and 4 will go forward. They're currently sitting at number 9. So
yeah, the team they're chasing, Varana, for that 8th spot, does have a couple of tough games remaining with Hanover and Highland Springs. So if Riverbend goes 1-1 or 2-0, they'll have a pretty good chance of getting in there.
I think the mentality of Riverbend right now, I was reading the quotes from the game story from DeMarco about how their playoffs had started 2 weeks ago. They've been approaching every game like it's their playoffs. They've got to win and keep winning in order to get in. And they're not worried about who can we jump, they're just worried about winning. And if they win,
right,
they're in. So that's the mentality they've got. They've got this offense humming. They've got the mentality going where they're saying, okay, let's just focus on winning football games. And so far, it's worked. Since the bye week, they're 2-0. So.
Yeah. This Bear Raid offense, right? That's pretty catchy. You like that one?
Yeah.
Yes, so Riverbend goes to 5-3 in the season. Stafford drops to 1-7. Other games around the area, number 3 Cortland with the 48-3 drubbing over King George. Another big rushing night for the Cougars there.
Yeah, what's interesting about this one, I don't know if Cortland's been doing this for the last few weeks or not, but they're rotating quarterbacks now, so it seems like they've just, it's kind of like Riverbend, they're just rotating guys in and out. They just have a ton of talent. Jabbar Allen playing a little bit of wide receiver there for him as well, so look out for them. I think they're getting stronger and they're getting more diverse there offensively.
Jenkins with 17 carries, 120 yards, and 2 touchdowns rushing. Cheatham with 11 for 119, 2 touchdowns as well. Cortland currently sits 5th in the 4A North. They have clinched a spot. King George fighting. They are hanging on to a number 16 seed currently in that 4A North at 3-5. Meanwhile, number 5 in the power poll, James Monroe, easily handling Caroline by a final score of 56-7. Juwan Davis, a new name that we see here from the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, Juwan Davis, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns rushing. Vincent Ura, 114 yards, two touchdowns. So those running backs are finally providing some balance to Jay Scroggins' air attack at JM. And Scroggins still able to do his thing, 8 for 10 passing, 147 yards, 3 touchdowns.
JM currently sitting 4th in the 3A East. I don't believe that they've actually clinched. Actually, I believe that this game did clinch the playoffs for them, as if that really were anything in doubt there. So JM moves to 7-1 on the season. Another team that remains undefeated from around the area, Fredericksburg Christian, with a 30-0 shutout of Greenbrier Christian. This FCS team looks like they've got a special season going.
Yeah, James Plord and Blair Lawson both just under 100 yards rushing. Both of them scored. Plord had 3 touchdowns. FCS has 1 game remaining at National Christian Academy. They've held their last 5 opponents to under 10 points. It's shaping up to be, like you said, a real special year for them, and they just continue to roll.
Colonial Beach with a 53-14 victory over Northumberland. Lamar Lucas seems to be synonymous with the Beach right now, yeah?
Yeah, he's certainly a workhorse for those guys. He only has 16 carries in this past game for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, but that was a good bounce-back win for Colonial Beach coming off a hard-fought loss to Essex the previous week. So Good to see them get back in the winning column. Now they're 6-2, and they've clinched a spot in the 1A East playoffs.
They are currently 7th in the 1A East, but they have clinched. Fauquier with a close game against Culpeper, 14-6 victory. Jeremy Robson with a 248 yards passing for the Blue Devils, but Culpeper not able to pull this one off.
No, but they're still there in the hunt for a playoff spot there in the 3A East. I believe they have Eastern View coming up. That's going to be a tough game for them, but still not out of it, so they still have a chance.
Yeah, that's one of the things about having 16 teams in your bracket. A 3-6 still keeps you alive. But Culpeper with a pretty good season already, and they're looking to find their way into the playoffs there. And meanwhile, Chancellor with a 29-14 victory over Spotsylvania, a tough Spotsylvania County matchup here. Those are always fun.
Yeah, those are always fun for the team usually playing Spotsylvania. Unfortunately for the Knights, but Mario Wisdom led Chancellor on the ground with 16 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown. He's developing into a bit of a workhorse for Chancellor. But Chancellor just have 2 wins this season, but they're developing into a team that's going to be one to watch down the road. A lot of talented sophomores on that team.
Now you may be saying, wait a second, Mark, I think we've gone through all of the games and we haven't announced our player of the week, the FLS player of the week. He's actually a defensive player, and he came from this Chancellor-Spotsylvania game. Yeah,
just like I just mentioned, a lot of talented sophomores on that team, and one is defensive end and offensive lineman, Etor Gross-Matos. He had 4 sacks against Spotsylvania. Spotsylvania runs a single-wing offense, and he was able to stay away from the scrums in the middle, as Coach Oliver put it, and rush around the edge and get to Spotsylvania's quarterback quite a bit.
Well, congratulations to, I'll say, Mr. Gross-Matos from Chancellor. He is the Freelance Star Player of the Week from Chancellor High School. Well, of course, as the season draws to a close, it makes each game that much more important and crucial. We've got some good games around the area this week. It's going to be a Halloween night as well on Friday. It'll start off with North Stafford visiting Brook Point. 2 teams battling in that 5A North, jockeying for positions. This should be a pretty interesting game here.
Yeah, I think it's a rematch of a game earlier this year that North Stafford won, I believe, 13-10 or 14-10 or something like that. But yeah, it should be a very interesting rematch.
Meanwhile, Mountain View will be visiting Riverbend. Mountain View currently 11th in the 5A North, Riverbend 9th in that 6A South. A couple of teams that really need victories here. Mountain View might be able to get by with a loss. Riverbend, a loss would almost certainly end their season. It's always interesting when you see how kids respond to these sorts of crucial games.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I think both of these coaches are probably saying win and in, lose and, neither of them can afford to lose at this point. They're both preaching get the win.
Yeah,
that's how you get in at this point.
Absolutely. And then an interesting matchup in the 1A East. This one really should be interesting. Current number 4 Essex will be visiting current number 1 Washington and Lee. Unlikely that these two teams will finish the regular season in those two positions, but this might be a preview of that 1A East final. Yeah,
very interesting game. This matchup and this rivalry is interesting without anything extra added to it, but you have the 1A East standings, and then you also have the return of Todd Jones. Actually not a return, but he's going against his former team Essex, who he led to the state championship in 2009. So
several interesting storylines going on there.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, it is Halloween. It should be interesting. It's always fun when these holidays fall on Friday nights.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that we're going to be seeing a lot of costumes and craziness in the stands. I hope that you are able to go out and find an exciting high school football game this Friday. Certainly want to give my thanks to the wonderful team from the Freelance Star, particularly the FLS Varsity crew, and these two guys here. They're very busy folks. I certainly appreciate the time that they give me and us. Nathan Warters, Taft, Coghill, fellas, it's always a lot of fun chatting with you. I certainly do appreciate it.
Yes.
Thanks for having us. Bring candy to the games on Friday if you want to. We'll take that.
Yeah, there you go.
We're sports writers.
Help them out here. Help them out. Well, that's going to do it for this week's installment of Varsity 360's Gridiron Report. Certainly appreciate you watching. I hope that you're able to catch a good game this weekend and come back next week when we recap the latest stories in Fredericksburg area high school football right here at Varsity 360. For the Virginia Varsity Sports Network, my name is Mark Coleman. Thanks for watching, everyone.